Welcome to the Interstellar Stories channel. In today's video, we're going to dive deep into a topic. Did you know that hundreds of individuals are opting for cremation at the moment of death rather than a conventional burial for the first time in history? In the next 10 years, experts predict that this tendency will continue to rise, with up to 70% of individuals choosing cremation over conventional burial. Which begs the question, should Christians think about cremation? Now let's get into this conversation. To begin with, what really is cremation? In a cremation, a body is burned to a high temperature inside a chamber, reducing it to its most basic components, bones, which are further reduced to ashes or fragments of bone. Some people see this process as a return to the dust that gave rise to mankind, which is consistent with scriptural allusions to that fact. Regarding the biblical perspective on cremation, while the Old Testament predominantly describes traditional burials, it does mention instances where bodies were burned, though not necessarily in the context of modern cremation practices. For example, there are references to burning bodies for practical or symbolic reasons, such as during times of war or religious reform, but no explicit commandments or prohibitions regarding cremation as a standard funeral practice. Christians frequently wonder if cremation will have an impact on the promised resurrected body at the time of the rapture. Biblical beliefs state that God will change our physical bodies into spiritual, exalted beings. God has the power to raise a body from the dead and raise it into a glorified condition regardless of how it is disposed of, by cremation, burial, or any other method. The conviction that God's power surpasses natural processes, such as the deterioration or annihilation of the physical body, is the foundation of biblical certainty. For Christians considering cremation, several factors should be weighed. These include personal beliefs, cultural practices, environmental considerations, and the wishes of loved ones regarding memorialization and grieving processes. Cremation offers flexibility in memorial arrangements but may lack the tangible marker of a traditional grave for remembrance. In conclusion, the decision between cremation and burial in modern society represents a combination of cultural standards, religious convictions, and environmental considerations. Christians are urged to weigh practical and spiritual considerations in making this choice, seeking serenity and direction in remembering the deceased and their lasting impact. The Bible doesn't explicitly command burial as the only way to handle bodies, though it's the norm in its stories. Notably, figures like Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph were buried. Jesus himself was laid in a tomb. While the Bible doesn't mention cremation directly, Christians interpret its teachings and principles. Some emphasize that since our bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit and will be resurrected, burial is ideal. Others see cremation as hastening the natural return to dust if done respectfully. Historic Christian views on cremation varied. Many now accept it, trusting God's ability to resurrect regardless of body state. The Catholic Church, for instance, permits cremation since 1963, urging respectful handling of ashes. Ultimately, whether burial or cremation, Christians focus on honoring God and the hope of resurrection, not on specific biblical commands about funeral practices. Each person decides based on faith, tradition, and personal beliefs, guided by principles of dignity and respect for the body.